Oh, I see it.
All right. Everyone, so thank you all for joining us. If you're joining us on Zoom or if you're joining us on Facebook Live. My name is Andrew. I'm a bookseller with Tombola Books here in St. Petersburg, Florida. We are an independently owned and operated bookstore in one of the most wonderful communities you will ever visit. I hope that after the pandemic, so many of you get to come by to our shop and see us in person. But I am so delighted tonight to be in conversation with Lessa Cross-Smith. Leesa is a writer from Kentucky. She's the author of This Close to Okay, which we'll be talking about tonight. She's also the author of So We Can Glow, which was one of my favorite short story collections of 2020 and really one of the top tier short story collections I've ever read. I think it's a masterclass in how to write character, how to write relationships, and also how to write dialogue. You are so good at dialogue, Leesa.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
I'm totally floored by it. But is there anything you'd like to say to our listeners before we kind of begin our interview?
Hi, thank you so much for having me, and thanks for tuning in, y'all. I appreciate it.
So, well, I guess, first, and I'm so interested with any writer right now, is when did you start writing This Closest to Okay? And did it start with Tallie or did it begin with Emmett?
So every time I start a book, really, sometimes with my stories too, it starts with an image. So it started with the image of a man standing on a bridge, and I won't really know what it means, really, and not all of those images turn into stories, and they certainly don't all turn into novels, but this one, I had the idea of a man standing on a bridge, and he was going to jump but doesn't, because a woman stops and takes him home instead. And I wrote that in my notes on my phone. I want to say it was 5 or 6 years ago, because I don't know when it was, because I don't have the actual note anymore, which is frustrating because I accidentally deleted all it. So I don't know. We'll just let the mystery be. But yeah, so about 5 or 6 years ago, I just wrote down an idea of an image, and the man came to me first. And then since I knew a woman was going to stop him, I had to figure out who they both were so I could get to work.
Well, I mean, what's so interesting is that you start this book and we're in a dark place, but then there's this sweetness and this tenderness that pervades sort of, the rest of the narrative until we get to that ending. How did you create that kinship between them when you're writing these two characters and you're going from multi-perspective? So we're seeing things from Tallie's perspective, then we're seeing things from Emmett's perspective. What was it like getting in their heads, and did you find yourself favoring one character over the other, or did you really find this harmony between them?
I definitely love them both. I was talking about this before with someone, because I'll be really careful about how much time I'm spending with each one of them when I'm writing from two different points of view. So I'll actually tick off the page numbers and be like, okay, we're spending 30 pages with her here. I need to make sure we spend sort of something equal, if I wanted to be equally weighted like I did in this book. And that's what I'm doing on purpose. But really, so what I do with them, so Tallie's on her way home from the gym after work, and she sees a man standing on the side of a bridge. And so she jumps out and she stops him from jumping. She's a therapist, but she doesn't tell him that. She convinces him to come get a cup of coffee with her. And then after that, they go back to her home. So I really started with really simple things. She just wants to stop him from jumping. That's it. Hey, do you like music? Tell me about your friends. What's going on? Like, what's going on with you? So she's really like, I see you. I don't want this to happen. I am going to insert myself into the situation so that you can't do this. So it really was kind of anything at that point. Do you like coffee? She has found with her clients that they really open up when they have something warm to drink. So she's like, maybe he'll want something warm to drink. He's a man in his 30s. She's not entirely positive how she doesn't know how he would react to knowing she was a therapist. Maybe he'd shut down. I love men. They're great, but they're not always the best at wanting to open up to someone who is trying to get them to open up. And so she doesn't tell him that. So it's tiny things. Do you like coffee? Oh, hey, it's almost Halloween. What about a pumpkin donut? What about this? Do you like that? Like, she just asked him questions to keep him talking. And then from that, since I knew where their relationship was going, I really wanted to just bloom from there. Emmett tells her pretty quickly, I don't want small talk. Like, I don't want to be talking about things that don't matter right now. It was just about to jump. So his focus has really changed. And so I knew that starting from there, that I was going to build on that trust. They were going to have to trust each other. She was going to have to trust him in a certain way to bring him back to her home as a woman who lives alone. He was also going to trust her a little bit at a time to open up. And so I try to do that with really tiny things that sort of bloomed from there. And they continue to bloom throughout the book, the things they are and aren't sharing with each other.
Well, that's, I mean, what I love, I mean, one of my favorite scenes is them just going to the costume store and sort of picking out those outfits. But you have such a knack for finding these small details that reveal character, but also bring the reader deeper into something. So you bring up the X-Files, or they're going as Mulder and Scully. As someone who loved the X-Files, all of a sudden I'm so immersed in this, and I can see the costumes, and I can see them, and I can think of the type of people that would want to dress up as Mulder and Scully, and it reveals so much. But what I truly love too is that with the multi-perspective, is that we get a scene from Tallie's perspective, and we get to hear everything that she doesn't say out loud, or everything that's going through her head, even if she's trying to pick a song and she's very wary of the lyrics. And then you go to Emmett's perspective, and he's not even thinking about the music on the radio. And, you know, and that really the start of this, and this great catalyst, is that it begins with these two minor deceits of one another, really, the things that they don't tell one another. And you so expertly hold those secrets over the reader's head. And I'm wondering, how did you know when to finally have the sort of climax happen? Did it come to you organically? Did you want to keep them sort of at odds, or in this sort of fantasy that they've built together for a while longer?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Thank you. First, I do want to say that I settled on X-Files because my best friend, that's her favorite thing in the world. So I picked that for her. And I also love it, but no one can ever love anything as much as she loves X-Files. But also the costumes were so easy. And I knew that she was not going to convince him to like put on full body makeup and whatever. But hey, will you wear this badge? Like, will you wear a Mulder badge? Of course, sure, I can do that for you. So yeah, I really loved writing. I loved writing the X-Files stuff. Yeah, so I was really concerned, as you know, as most writers are or should be, with pacing. So I definitely wanted the reader to constantly be wondering, are they telling the reader? Are they telling the reader the truth? Are these reliable narrators? Are they telling each other the truth? Why are they keeping the secrets they're keeping? What are the secrets they're keeping that the reader doesn't know yet? Because and it's funny because that's what I started saying when I started doing press for this. I did that specifically because I wanted to sell the book. so like people have been like, oh, how did you decide to do this? I was like, because I knew what I needed to do in order to sell the book so that my agent could sell the book. So I tried to stretch it out as much as I could, but also I feel like it's really satisfying along the way because you are getting little things. You're getting little things here and there. You're feeling like you're getting to know them, and you are getting to know them. But, you know, as they're getting to know each other, the reader's also getting to know them. And so there are several, you know, big things that happen in the book. Those almost ended up being surprises to me. I didn't know everything. I just knew like half of it. And that happens to me sometimes. I'll have things outlined. I'll have a synopsis, share it with my agent. We'll talk about it. I shared it, you know, with my editor. But then, yeah, as I write along the way, other things will pop up. So it's kind of like both. Yeah, I kind of know what was going on and when I was going to do it. And then sometimes I'll go back and add things at different stages.
So I find, you know, interesting, you kind of talk about sort of plotting or figuring out the pacing of things. I mean, how does it differ from writing short stories, like going from So We Can Glow to writing This Close to Okay? Did you know you want to go to a novel after writing short stories? Do you prefer one form over the other?
So yeah, that's a really great question too. When I'm writing short stories, I am doing no outlining at all. Like I am just diving in. And that's how I've written every short story I've ever written. I just sit at the computer and I just dive in. I make notes on my phone if I'm away from my computer. Oh, hey, you know, a guy this, or a woman does this, or a couple figures this out. But I'm just sitting down and I'm not like writing pages and pages. Before I started writing This Close to Okay, I'd written pages and pages, you know, 15 pages of just an outline of what was going to happen when. And so that's completely different when it comes to writing short stories versus writing novels. I don't have a preference. I really prefer writing them both. I really, really love to write short fiction. And I like to write novels too, but I like talking to people about novels more than I like talking to people about short stories if the person doesn't love short stories. People who love short stories are a really special kind of person. Thank you so much for loving short stories and for your kindness about mine. But people who do not like short stories, or people who think that they don't, I'm 42 years old. I no longer have the time to try to convince Like, I no longer have the time to try to convince you you'll like a short story. If you don't, that's okay. Everyone is different. So I much prefer to talk about novels because people seem to like to talk about novels more. But I will talk about short stories with my short story people as much as they want.
Excellent. I wonder too, was this something, was this close to okay finished before the pandemic hit?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so,
the book was finished, but I had to go back
okay.
in it, to get it ready. But yeah, the book was
Yeah.
finished.
I was just wondering, I love asking writers about this. Has this certain moment in time kind of affected the way you write or changed the way you write at all? Or do you still have that sort of same system routine in place?
Yeah, it didn't really change the way I write because I always write at home. I can't write out. So I have a long list of things that I love and things about me on my website. And one of them at the top is that I'm very easily startled. And so that's a simple reason why I can't write out. If someone were to drop something or someone comes, like, I just couldn't constantly, like, someone starts talking or a song comes on. So I can't get any work done when I'm out. So that part of it that part has not changed at all. I had a book to turn in, I had to turn in my book during the pandemic. I'd finished writing it, but I turned it in. I sold another book during pandemic. I turned that book in during pandemic. Like that stuff didn't change. Like, I had work to do. I have a contract signed. That stuff did not change for me because thankfully we have been healthy. We have a warm home, and so for me, those things have not changed at all.
I mean, do you have any advice you want to impart on writers, or like any key piece of advice that like sort of helps you? I mean, it seems like you've done some really incredible work before it and you're continuing to have an amazing output during it. Is there anything that you think helps you as a creative person or someone who's creating these stories?
Specifically during the pandemic?
Or even like after or before, like any piece of advice that
Yeah.
maybe sits with you.
Yeah, I mean, my strongest piece of advice I always try to tell people is to finish what you're starting. So I finish all my stories. I mean, the reason in between my books, I wrote maybe like 100 stories because I finished all the stories I set out to write. Like, I really have to finish what I've started. A lot of people I know, when they get into writing, they'll just, they have a really great idea. And then after 5 pages, it gets hard. Yeah, it is. You got to sit there and wrestle with it all day. And if you don't want to do it, or if you're busy, I understand if people have jobs, how can you make time for that? Like, I totally get it. Yeah, during the pandemic, I've just been really blessed to be able to push on through. Being able to see a book from being one sentence of a note in my iPhone to finished books, like right here, like that is enough for it to click over in my head to say, okay, I can keep doing this as long as the Lord makes it allows me to be able to do this. But before I got to this point, it was really just a lot of stubbornness and a lot of patience. I have waited years to get a rejection, like literally a full calendar year to hear a no, like over and over again. And so it's like, without patience, without me allowing my agent and the people on my team to do their jobs, without my husband making tea for me and food for me so I wouldn't, go hungry when I've locked myself away in order to write, those things certainly helped before. It's a lot of patience. This business is really, really tough. And so tough that when my girlfriends who are teachers want me to come and talk to their students about the publishing industry, I always say no, because I don't want to squash the hopes of these little middle schoolers because I want to be like, well, it's not for everybody. It's really not. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. It's so hard. It really is. And you have to be willing to hang in there and not get a whole lot until you do. And then things get a little better.
I'm happy you've hung in there and you continue to bring us more of your work. I guess, speaking even of contemporary, one thing I really wanted to note in your book is that you really expertly integrate modern technology and, modern social media, especially the ways in which it makes it really hard to ever really end a relationship when so many aspects of it live on social media, or that you and your significant other have lives that live on in pictures on social media.
Yeah.
Can you talk about writing those scenes? I think they were really well done in the sense that it was such an active way of seeing someone go through someone's profile. Like, how did you sort of come about writing those scenes? And do you see more of those sort of like mechanics? Like, do you see a lot of your characters going forward interacting with social media in your books?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So this isn't really a spoiler. It's been mentioned in a couple reviews, but yeah. So what happens is that we learn really quickly that Tallie, she is recently divorced. Her husband, she isn't able to have children. Her husband had a mistress, got his mistress pregnant. They got divorced, and he married her, and now they moved away. But Tallie, his name is Joel, but Tallie still looks at Joel's Facebook. She'll look at his Facebook. She looks at his new wife's Facebook and the pictures of the new baby. And then a little bit later, when Emmett gets to the house later, in order to, he's being very sweet, attentions, he's drunk and wants to be sweet. So he wants to be sweet slash he's sort of mad at her and trying to get her back. So you'll see, but without telling too much, he starts going through their Facebooks and he starts messaging Joel as if he is Tallie. Just talking to Joel, kind of seeing what he'll say back. I knew I was going to do that because she had violated his trust in a way. So he wanted to kind of get her back from that. And through the course of doing that, he, the next morning, he's not drunk anymore. He realizes what he's done and then like tries to fix it. It's like you make a mess and you just like try to clean it up and make even more of a mess. Yeah, I really hadn't touched on that much social media and stuff and the things I've written before. But with this one, I knew that I wanted Tallie to never use it. She never uses it unless it's just to sort of torture herself by looking at her ex-husband and this baby, a baby she can't have, she can't stop. And I feel like that's so realistic. Was fortunate enough when it comes to this to meet my husband in high school. He had a pager, like this was 95. So he had a pager and all that. Like I don't know what it's like to date or to have a breakup in this world, but I talk about it all the time because I feel like it has got to drive you like wild. If you had written someone or texted them and they weren't writing you back, but then they were tweeting or on Instagram and you were just waiting to get a message back, like I couldn't. And then I feel like I would personally get so obsessed with what were they looking at? What were they liking? Did they like my post? Like, I don't know how kids and whatever age people are do it. I really don't. And so I gave that to Tallie. She's really wrestling, she is really wrestling with that. And I have a book coming out next year called Half Blown Rose, and there's more like text and emails in there. I kind of incorporate that a little more, but also my main character in that book is in her 40s, and I feel very free. She doesn't have to know the latest, hottest thing. Like, I'm not on TikTok. I've never been on Snapchat. I've never even been in that world, and I don't feel the need to at all. And so I'll give that to my characters too. It really lets me off the hook. I don't have to have her sitting around on Instagram or whatever all day because she's doing other things because she's older. I'll get back to you if I ever write like a YA book or like have teens. It would just be all DMs, or if TikTok had DMs, I guess. I really don't know.
Now, I think what's also great is that while we do have this really intimate relationship with Tallie and Emmett as readers, you've also created a rich sort of surrounding character base, specifically with someone, like Lionel and Zora, with Tallie's mother. I mean, when you go about creating these secondary characters, do you also sort of, I don't want to say like storyboard, but do you sort of note out who they are, what their personality traits are? Because they're so fully formed. Even like within like the first few seconds of meeting them, I feel like I've known them for 100 pages.
Yeah, thank you. That is such a high compliment. Yeah, so I was doing an event with my girlfriend the other day, and she described it as the kind of person you meet, and then you instantly, like, if you know them, you know their whole family, like their granddaddy and their uncles, this and this, and there's some people like that, and I have people like that in my life. And I was like, that's totally, yeah, that's what Tallie's like. Like, if you meet Tallie on a bridge, you're gonna know her whole family. That's what she's like. And so, yeah, I especially wanted to do that because she doesn't know anything about Emmett's family, and he's all alone in the rain wanting to kill himself. So what can we do? Let's surround this man with as much, let's almost like smother him with love. Hey, you would like to, my brother has a Halloween party. Come here. This is going to have these people. You can meet all these people here. Like, I'll tell you about my friends. Let me tell you about my sister-in-law. Yeah, so I do actually have sort of a storyboard. I mean, I have secret Pinterest where I will save things that remind me of side characters and main characters too. One of the first things I pinned to her big brother Lionel's page was a picture of Idris Elba, because I was like, yeah, he looks like Idris Elba. Like, he's very like commanding, like everyone kind of stops and looks at him when he walks into the room. He's one of the most charming, handsome men on earth. Sure, that's her brother, right? She's grown up with that kind of brother that would affect how she is. He would talk to her a certain way, she would react to him a certain way. Her parents, her dad, is married to someone else now. Her parents got divorced. They have this kind of fussy relationship. How has that shaped who she is and how she reacts to people? And pretty early on, she says that to deal with the way her mom had raised her, to deal with the family she grew up in, she tried to fix it by becoming a therapist to help people be kinder to one another, because she grew up in a home where people would just blurt things out and hurt people's feelings. And she's like trying to make the world a better place, using her pain to try to make the world a better place. So yeah, I am always trying to think about the dynamics between characters and families. I wanted her to open her world to him completely so that he could feel comfortable and she could keep him distracted and busy until the end of the weekend when they had to go back to their regular life, ...
I mean, what's so impressive with Tallie too in your writing is that, without giving too much away, at the end, there's kind of like a bottle rocket moment where she goes through, it's corny, but like an emotional roller coaster. Like, I've never seen like the highs and lows and the peaks,
Right.
but it feels so authentic. It feels like this is how someone would react to this, where you have the rage and then the forgiveness, but then the rage comes back. It's like, wait, no, I can't just let you off on this. And I'm just curious, like, do you feel like you live in these characters' skin? Do you feel like you also go through that emotional exhaustion? Like, how do you create such an authentic moment for someone like that? Because I feel like it's easy to just dive into one emotion over the other to just get through it, but you really have Tallie confront every little thing that's happened over the course of the novel at the end.
Yeah, thank you. I knew that she at the heart of who she is, she really wants to understand people. She's got that sensitivity and that's her job. But there's a reason she chose that for her job too. So no matter what someone else has going on, she really tries to not take it personally and think about the puzzle of who they are and why they would have felt like doing that was okay. So that's what she's trying to do in those moments. Slash, she is a real person and she's pissed off. I didn't want you to do that. You did this. So I try to just make her as real as possible. I keep my secrets, so I'm not always going to say what parts of everything are exactly what I would do. But I feel a lot of feelings the same way anyone else does. And a lot of times those feelings are complicated. There's a line in there where she's like, sometimes feelings smudge up. I can't even say what I'm feeling right now because I am a little sad, but I'm mad. I'm also hungry and the sun is too bright and I'm tired. And you can feel a billion different things at once. And so I want to always honor that when I'm writing characters. I want them to be realistic. If they're that sort of character, there are also characters that really just feel one way or another and they don't care. They don't feel deeply at the moment or something. So I was definitely wanting to make her as realistic as possible in those moments. She does get really angry, but the part of her that can connect with people, the part of her that hurts if someone else is hurting, isn't completely overshadowed by her own feelings. And I wanted to make her that sort of person. She's a really special, sweet person. So I wanted to be able to do that justice. But feelings are really complicated. They really are. I don't think that ever goes away.
I mean, similar to Emmett, not once again, not to give much away, but towards the end, like there's like a writing style where the way he experiences the world is through very brief notes, and it's
right.
So much of it has to do with noise, and him trying to get rid of that. I mean, what was it like getting into the darker aspects of Emmett after sort of having, once again, certain moments with him and Tallie that almost felt like a dream for us to kind of confront the darker side of his history? I mean, how did you find out about that? How did you write that? And was that always part of his character?
Yeah, so the darkness there was always part of his character. I went back and forth about exactly what it would be. But so yeah, throughout the book, there are little things. And so I'm not going to tell anyone what why I've written it like that or what they mean, but he has instances where he is just taking stock of what's going on. He's really trying to root himself within his own anxiety. That was something that I went back and added after a lot of drafts because I wanted to go even deeper. I wanted the reader to go even deeper to what he was feeling. And then when you get to the end of the book, it pays off because you understand what he was doing. Because people have asked me in interviews, why you know, they want to talk about that or why you were doing that, and I'm like, well, I can't tell you. I can't tell you. You have to read it because then, you know, then you'll know. But yeah, with, you know, with all the darkness there, I was really inspired by, I really love foreign movies. I love French movies, Spanish movies, and what I feel like foreign movies do better than American movies is that they have a wider range of emotions. Like over here, I feel like it's a comedy and that's it. Everything is funny in it. Or you have a serious drama and then everything has to be really sad and there aren't any light moments. But what I love so much about the shows and the movies I watch that come from overseas is that like I just watched this movie called with Mads Mikkelsen called Another Round. And it was
so good.
Yeah, exactly. Like it was so funny in parts, but then so like heartbreaking in parts. And then there's a moment where you have these friendships between these men and they're just listening to this beautiful song and they have tears in their eyes. And then later they can go do these crazy things together. And it's like, that's what I'm always trying to do in my books. Yeah, they're, you know, he can be laughing one minute or even smiling, but there a deep sadness moves through him because of something. And that's just how humans are, really. That's how we are. You have a really good day and then something terrible can happen at any moment. You're like, that sucks, man. I hate that. And then something really great can happen and you can be like, I feel good again. You know, I'm trying to always get that on the page. And with him, since I knew I was going so dark, you know, I really try to spread it out. And then even when I am going so dark, I still really fight for some light there. I'm going to always do that in my books if you know, if I can, and I can because they're my books.
And that the dancing sequence at the end of Another Round will live in my head, just rent free. It's there.
I know. Oh, it was so beautiful. It did exactly what I love about movies like that. I felt everything. And then did you see the whole story behind it, that the man who made it, his daughter was killed in the car accident at the very beginning of shooting it? So it really is like soaked in. It just, I mean, it really is. I mean, seriously, I'm sorry that I had to tell you that because it's so sad, but it really, once you see it and then you reflect back on the movie, that whole wide range of human emotion on Earth as a little creature here on Earth is like captured in that movie. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. I mean, talking about like kind of the media you experienced, I mean, do you find that there's a place for research in your writing? Do you, whether that's going to old books you've loved or movies you love, or doing like physical research for someone who might be a therapist?
Yeah, well, I do have a girlfriend who's a therapist, so I talked to her about several things. Yeah, so that's just a real practical research. If I have a question, you know, there were several things in the book where I'm like, I don't know what this, you know, I used to watch this like Laugh PD cop show, and so I was like, oh, okay, something I remembered from there, just like a thing that the cops would say or something when they see a police officer. A lot of times I'm doing that just to figure it out. When it comes to research or writing, I really try not to read a lot of literary fiction when I'm writing a book because of what could leak in. But I do read a lot of old books, and I like to read a lot of poetry. I like to read a lot of, like, I love Sylvia Plath of the poetry on a sentence level, just her journals, just her list of like foods or what they had at a picnic. I'm always looking for beauty at a sentence level. So that's just a research. That's just research I will do when I'm trying to think about the sentences, because I listen to my books over and over again. I listen to the robotic voice. Well, actually it's kind of sweet sometimes. It's not that robotic, but the voice on my phone. So when I go for my walks, I listen to it over and over again. So I'm always listening to the poetry of language. So that's something that I put a lot of effort in. There's also a lot of mentions of art in this book and in almost all of my books. I really love artists. I love the Impressionists. I love sculptors. And so whenever I finish a book, my husband, when I finished Whiskey and Ribbons and turned it in, that was my first novel, my husband suggested that we go to the art museum here because I was like, I need to get out of my brain. I've been like, I start to lose words. I've been writing so much and looking at words. And he was like, I think it would be so good if we were quiet and went and looked at things instead, quietly. And so ever since then, that's something I've done too. When I'm finished with a book, shut up, go look at things visually, take it in, visually, because that really helps for research, really, for later.
I know we kind of hit the end, but also I wonder, what is the editing process like on a novel? Like how many, like what's the conversation like with your agent or your editor? Do you have sort of trusted friends that you will send drafts to beforehand?
No one reads my work except my husband and then my agent. Yeah.
All
so
right.
I don't share it with anyone else. So I share it with my husband, and then I share it with my agent. My agent and I'll go back and forth if we want to iron something out, and then it goes to my editor. Yeah, and that could take that, usually when we get down to it, that only takes a couple months. But by the time my agent's name is Carrie, by the time I've sent it to Carrie, it is not my first draft. I mean, obviously it's like 1,000. I don't show anyone my first stuff, not even my husband. It's just like, I'm working on book number 6 right now. And I leave it on the couch and I'm like covering it back up to make sure no one can look at it, because I had to feel free for it to be terrible until I can like try to make it pretty. But yeah, I like the process. It's worked for me so far, so I'm not going to change it.
Have you, I know you said previously that you don't always want to talk to especially younger kids about the publishing industry, but do you have any sort of key pieces? I know we kind of talked a bit about like the determination of finishing those stories. Do you have any like key pieces of advice you'd ever give to like a writing student, someone even at the like, collegiate level?
Yeah, I mean, I do get asked to do those. I haven't done one of those yet. I'd much rather do those because they're adults and they can handle it. I want these little kids to keep writing their stories without thinking about trying to sell them. I just can't reach that place. I'm in it too much to like try to reach back there. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think there are people like who write really great books on craft. There's a really great writing. I think that Twitter is terrible, but there is a great like writing community of people who answer questions. Make sure that before you have a lawyer look at things. I know this is really practical, but do not sign your work away. Even if you think, oh, no one will ever, like, be very careful about who you sign your work over to. Those practical things can help. It's what has worked for me is not trying to write like anyone else. I mean, I write what I want to write, and nobody tells me my business. I write the book that I want to write. I write it the way I want to write it. I focus on the things I want to focus on. Out here trying to write like someone else just won't work. It's okay if not everyone loves it. Those are the things that worked for me, and just find something else to do, work on the next thing, go for walks, have other hobbies, have other things in your life. If this had been the only thing in my life back when I was really trying hard, I would have just felt crushed and so down about it. But I have so many other things going on that I didn't focus only on that. You'd be miserable because it's hard and you have to wait for so long. I mean, you really do. You have to wait for like years and years. I mean, this is me 10 years in, literally 10 years in. Yeah, almost 11. So
over that decade, have you found that if you go back and read Whiskey and Ribbons and you look at This Close to Okay, do you see points where you've grown as a writer or changed as a writer at all?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I don't think I've changed. I don't think I've changed as a writer. I can write a novel faster now. I can write a novel faster. I used to put a lot of brain power into doubting myself and wondering if I can write a novel. And then once I taught myself how to write a novel, I can write a novel. I don't worry about whether or not I can write a novel anymore. It takes a lot of energy if you're doubting yourself. No longer do I wonder if I can write a novel. So I've grown there. I mean, I'm always going to talk about the way things smell, and I'm always going to talk about first kisses and intimacy. Those are things that are going to be in all of my books because I love to write about those things. Girlfriendships, and people are probably going to be smoking a little too much, and those are the things like I'm going to talk about sex and God, and I'm going to talk about that in all my books. But I'll just write those books a little quicker.
Now, I mean, the way you write emotional intimacy is so great that by the point we get to some kind of physical intimacy, I feel like Tallie and Emmett, I've already seen that from them, and then I'm like, oh my god, wait, no, it's like the first time, but they've just, the way they've connected, the way you've had them connect through these small moments. I just had to say a favorite small detail of mine is the Harry Styles mug. That's and I always like wonder, like when you're going through a character's home, how do you land on a Harry Styles mug?
Because I have a Harry Styles mug.
There you go.
Yeah, that's no secret there. Yeah, no,
Okay.
I just have a One Direction mug that I love so much because I love One Direction and I love Harry Styles. So yeah, that's a little secret there. I just gave it to her. And I liked thinking that she spends her day locked in an office hearing the worst things that have happened in people's lives, hearing the darkest things. And I love thinking about her turning on this, like the sunniest, happiest music on her way home to just clear it out. And Harry Styles is so sunny and happy. How can you just not love it? And then she forces it on Emmett because she's like, here's your mug. It's a Harry Styles mug full of coffee. If you want to tease me about liking One Direction, you like them now, don't you?
Well, I was like, it's a beautiful gateway that already, it's like one night, here I am. Tallie just shows that, and
Yeah.
it's just such a little moment. We also, a real quick question from Wendy Harris. She asked, and even new novel in the works, but she's wondering if you have any designs on another short story collection in the future.
Yeah, I don't know. Question mark. I mean, I want to say I love writing short fiction. I just don't like talking about it. So maybe if I didn't have to talk about it. But that's only because I've had 2 books come out within one calendar year. It came out last March. This came out in February. So I think I'm just tired of having to try to convince people to like short stories. It's very good. I'm okay with saying I think that you'll love it. I love it. I think it's great. And I wrote it. But another one, yeah, maybe.
We'll keep that. And so I'm wondering too, as we kind of close in like 45 minutes, would you mind reading a little bit from this close to okay for us?
I'd love to. So this is just so after they talk on the bridge, they go to the coffee shop. And the only thing you need to know here is that he will not tell her his name. We later find out that it's Emmett, but right now she doesn't know it, so she's just calling him Bridge in her head. What are you going to do now? He asked after a moment. He leaned over like a sigh, let his weight press against the wall beside them, suicide casual. He was a stranger, a strange man. Everything about him was oddly both new and familiar when held up to the other men in her life. Bridge had small ears like her dad and her college beau, Nico. Bridge, Nico, and Joel all had nice hands. Bridge looked the most like a storybook lumberjack from a deep forest who'd taken a wrong turn, ended up in the big city. And the rich golden timbre of his voice reminded her of her brothers. What are we going to do? She asked. The little boat of nervousness was gone, gone, gone. Bon voyage. She couldn't see it if she squinted. They were en route to her place. He'd been quiet so far in the car, only replying to the question she asked. So you have a house or an apartment? I used to. Not anymore, really, he said. You don't have anywhere to stay? I didn't say that. I just don't have a house or an apartment. You have a car? I don't have a car here, not in town, he said. How do you get around? I get around all right, he said. He looked over at her with the backpack in his lap. He kept his hand on top of it. Tallie's fear scuttled back when she glanced at that backpack. That's where his torture devices could be. The ropes, the gun, the knives out. Creepy song to be floating across the coffee shop. Tallie kept hearing the chorus in her head. It was full dark and still raining, although not as much as before. Halloween was on Saturday. What was she doing? Locked in her car, the stranger in her passenger seat, driving him to her house. This was a perfect horror film she had created. And when they got to her place, he'd take whatever it was out of that backpack, murder her, and put her somewhere no one would ever find her. Her parents and brother would be on TV begging for her return. Years from now, her brother would write a book about it. It'd be a bestseller, get optioned for a movie. One of those kids from one of those teen vampire shows would play Bridge. He'd win an Oscar. Her brother would become a highly sought-after screenwriter and leave his family, start dating one of the young girls from the same teen vampire show. And all that should have kept her from taking Bridge to her house, but none of it did. She never did things like this, and she was leaning into that chaotic energy, eager to see what was waiting for her on the other side. The wide mouth of the world was opening up. Something was happening, something beyond her control. She'd been given the keys to the lion's cage, and she was inside petting it, staring into its pale amber eyes.
I mean, it's such a, once again, a wonderful entry into Tallie's brain, especially in that moment, like, why are you putting this man in your car? And like, you know, we immediately get like the sense like of who Emmett is, but at the outset, when you're just meeting him as Bridge, like, why is this man in her car? And all the
Right.
things that go through her head, but it gives you such a gateway into who Tallie is too as a human being. And I think that like holds true throughout the book. I mean, was that always the beginning of the book, or did you find yourself starting elsewhere and cutting and moving around some scenes?
Yeah, that was always at the beginning of the book. And it's funny when I end up talking about it because I'm like, well, what else could Tallie do? I mean, people, I've had readers, message me and they're like, I just couldn't deal with the fact that she was doing this. But I'm like, what else would she do? Like, it's not a good idea to call the police all the time if someone is suicidal. She's not going to leave him there. She could try to take him to the hospital, but she doesn't know if he would go. He's a grown man. She can't force him to go. She really is, she says it later. When she goes home and he meets her two cats, Jim and Pam, she's like, she kind of brought him home like a cat. And she doesn't mean it in a nasty way, but if she wants to watch over him, she wants to take care of him. She's trusting herself. She feels like she has really good intuition and she tries to check his energy. She knows a lot about people. She's not scared of him deep down. She has her moments, but she's like, I don't think I need to be scared of you, right? And she, she's constantly like talking to him about that. And so she has those conversations throughout the cognitive dissonances she has. Here's a strange man in my home. I always knew it was going to start that way because, like I said, I wanted to sell the book. So I obviously want the reader to be like, girl, what is she doing? And then I'm like, well, then you have to read it to see what she's doing. Is she right or wrong? Was this a good decision for her to make? Like, what is this, and I find it interesting because I do end up talking to readers who are like, yeah, I had to ask myself the same question. I mean, what would you do? I mean, she's certainly not going to be like, oh, okay, well, see ya, and just drive off. Like, that would be a totally different story. I could start a story like that. A woman who sees a man about to jump and she's just like, see ya. And that's a totally different character. It's a totally different story. It's not this story, but it's a story.
I wonder too, just what, I mean, not to get like too like English class on it, but you could see with that Halloween party, the symbols that are kind of at play there, and everyone's sort of in costume, and it's sort of the climactic moment at the Halloween party that sort of undresses or takes the costumes off of everyone as the truth
right
sort of pour out. So I mean, I know you said like the beginning was always the beginning, but did you always know this would be an October book? Did you know that you were always gonna be going to this Halloween party, or was that something that kind of came about as you were interacting with Emmett and Tallie?
I knew it was always going to be a Halloween party because I wanted it to be really overwhelming for Emmett in a different way. And I was thinking a lot of Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet when they're at the party and there's just so much stuff happening. Romeo and Juliet actually take a break and then that's how they see each other. Like, I needed like all these things to be happening. And also something that we haven't touched on that I've talked about all the rest of the times, which is actually nice because we talked about so many different things now and you asked me questions no one else had. So thank you. Yeah, but the comfort and coziness of the book, her home is almost another character. So I was really turning up the comfort and coziness of a Halloween weekend where it's rainy and the weather's really perfect. And look, the candles smell like pumpkin. And she's taken an extra day off so she can have this long weekend. She did not anticipate spending it with a suicidal man. But since that's happening, how comfy can we make it? They make pasta together. They make pumpkin chocolate chip cookies and drink a lot of tea. And there are a lot of candles and her couch is really soft. And so I knew it would have to be winter or fall for me to turn up the coziness. Now I'm pretty good at cozy. I can find a way to do it for you in the summer too, but this made it easier.
Absolutely. I would say that Tal is one of those characters that I wish could just come out of the book and hang out with me and have coffee with me. And like, you created such a good listener, which is so interesting as a character that usually you want to see someone jumping off the page, and the way that Tallie jumps off the page is the way that she has this wonderful ear for everyone around her in her life. So I just like, once again, just kudos for creating someone like that.
Thank you so much.
I know we're kind of approaching the end of the hour, so I just want to let everyone know, once again, we're in conversation with Lessa Cross-Smith here. We're talking about the book This Close to Okay, which is out now. You can find it on our shelves here at Tumble of Books in St. Petersburg. And if you're tuning in with us from outside of Florida, we have our online shop. We ship nationwide. Just look up This Close to Okay in the search bar. And for anyone in St. Pete, we also offer in-person shopping. You can make an appointment to shop with us on tumbleofbooks.com. Just hit the big book it button at the top. We'd love to have you in here. We're doing some, safety procedures in here. Everything is sanitized. When customers are in here, we're all in masks. We are here for you. We want to connect you to books. And that's why we're talking to Leesa tonight, because she's an author that I am just astounded by. And I love So We Can Glow. I love This Close to Okay. I think y'all will too. Leesa, is there anything you'd want to leave with our listeners tonight on Facebook here or here on Zoom?
Oh, just thank you. This has been a real treat, really. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for donating your time to us tonight. And I hope one day after this is all over, you can get down to St. Petersburg, Florida, and come visit us in person.
I would love to. Let's do that. Okay.
Have a great night, Leesa.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.